this your first live that you've done?
No, not at all.
Oh, good. Okay. I was going to be honored.
No, we've done a lot of live. We actually do a lot of live streaming now with the business, so we're pretty adept at going live. We were streaming live for the Mill Summit the last few days, and
wonderful. Yeah, I was tuning in. So I think we're now live on our Facebook page. So,
oh man,
welcome everyone who's joining us today live on Facebook. My name is Elise Bortolato, and I'm part of the Emerging Enterprise Center, a nonprofit business incubator here in Wilmington, Delaware. That's part of the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. And we started, these startup stories to kind of both educate aspiring entrepreneurs and also inspire aspiring entrepreneurs. And today we're really excited to be talking with Christopher Bruce, who's the founder and CEO of King Creative. And one thing I loved about Christopher, sorry, is that
they both work.
Wonderful. I asked for his bio, and one of the top things in his bio was that it's all about connecting with the audience. And I felt like it was very cool that his bio was really not about himself, but really about others. And he has a very kind of unique background in history, being a UD's mascot, and he's an actor, writer, producer, creator. And I feel like that's all something we're going to talk about today that kind of goes into his work here at King Creative. So first, I'm just kind of let you just tell everyone a little elevator pitch about what is King Creative. And
yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me on. This is fun. And you were joking, is this your first live? And I think I gave you an impression that maybe it wasn't, but that's because we were just playing, but not even close, right? We do a lot of live streaming. In fact, we just got off a couple days with the Millennial Summit and helped them with some pre-production as well as some actual live stream switching, which was a lot of fun. But King Creative, what is that, right? We are a video production company and full-scale recording studio, and our specialty is getting lost in people's worlds and just helping them tell their stories. And that's really what it's about.
Wonderful. And I know I had sent you kind of over some questions, but I really want to make this more just a basic dialogue between the two of us. I want to get to know what, you guys do and who you are. And part of that is not just talking about your business, but I just kind of interested to know a little bit about you and yourself. Where'd you grow up?
Yeah. That kind of thing. No, it's good. And just to be sure that this was going to be as organic as possible, I barely even was able to look at those questions. So don't worry about it. This will be as off the cuff and real as it gets.
Wonderful. So, a little bit background about who you are as a person. So, where did you grow up?
Yeah, I mean, so I always tell people kind of a quick short story is I was born in Denver, actually, of all places. My parents were out there. My dad was studying at the Colorado University at the time. So that's where I was born. And then I ended up growing up. My mom and I moved back to Syracuse, New York, which is where I ultimately grew up all the way through high school until I came to the University of Delaware. And that's what brought me down this way. So yeah, just kind of Denver, Syracuse, and Delaware.
Awesome. And you were, again, the mascot in UD, which is an interesting.
I was.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was awesome, right? So the mascot thing kind of happened really randomly because I went to the University of Delaware, as a lot of kids do, not really 100% sure what we want to do, but I had a direction, and I was pre-med to start, and I was thinking, it's at least something to aim at to get going with, and then I became the mascot. And that all changed. And my mom always joked that she sent me off to school to become a doctor, and I came home a stuffed animal. So that was like the kind of inside family joke. But it really became so much more. And it really set me on this path of that's where I really started to enjoy connecting and entertaining and really relating to people through my performance. And that's really kind of carried me through my, my entire career in terms of really bringing that attention and that desire to really make that connection.
That's awesome. It's funny. So it's funny how people kind of, again, start on their path, get kind of derailed or changed, and you kind of end at one place. So was there anything in your past that made you say, I'm going to, maybe start a business or become an entrepreneur?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I was that kid who definitely was selling candy in the hall rooms, like in the classrooms and like in the halls at school. I literally at one point was developing full displays to create a Southwestern Native American museum in my basement where I was going to charge kids in the neighborhood to come and pay admission. So I always kind of had a bit of
Was
an
that a
entrepreneurial
successful start,
spirit.
or was that one of your first fails?
It wasn't necessarily, that was more of a concept that went through heavy levels of development, but never fully got off the ground, that
Perfect.
particular one, because it ended up being a lot more involved than I really, I mean, as a lot of things, right? You dive in and then you're like, wow, this is a lot more work than I thought. And then you don't have time because apparently you're supposed to do your homework and all those other things that my mom was very adamant about at the time. So it wasn't able to become the priority. But the other things like the classics, the lemonade stands in the end of the driveway, that literally, hey, I'm going to go and buy a paint can of, this gum, which there was back then, there was like Gushers, and then there was the gum, I can't remember the name of it, that literally was like sold in a paint can. And it was like the gimmick, right? So I would buy wholesale and then I would take it to school and sell it individually wrapped. And that was one of the things I did at a pretty early age, and got really involved with those types of things. And I was athletic and I was involved in swimming and all kinds of sports. And every year I was really competitive with that. And I was the top money earner for like 5 years in a row with the leukemia swimathon in Syracuse. So I was like, oh, I'm going to get whatever the top prize was. I'm like, well, I'm going to get that because I'm going to win this. And
That's,
I did. So it was always fun.
and that's actually kind of perfect into kind of going into, you know, I wanted to kind of see like, when a lot of, I think, entrepreneurs or, um, aspiring entrepreneurs have this idea.
Hmm.
So when do you think you saw like King Creative actually being worth pursuing? When was there enough research and development before
Yeah.
you're like, I'm going to do this?
Well, I mean, it started, kind of transitioned from college. I was in college and I was performing a lot. I was working in sports. I started freshman year of college. I had a full-time internship with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then I started working in a lot of sports entertainment throughout college. And I was the official mascot of NCAA basketball, touring all over the country while I was in college as the mascot for the University of Delaware. And also was doing a local team with the Lehigh Valley Dogs, which was a USBL league team back then, and all kinds of stuff. And Dave Raymond, who was the original Philly Fanatic, local, well-known name there, Tubby Raymond, his father, which is what Delaware's field is named after, saw some potential in my performance, and he had started this company called Raymond Entertainment Group, which he started while I was still in college, and then I started working full time for him while I was still in college, doing all these other things. And while I was with him, and kind of took over the performer role and essentially the creative director role for a lot of the things that we were developing and putting out there, I got really involved in content and I started doing more development, and we were doing stuff with YouTube, which I really wish we had continued with some of those streams way back then, because those channels probably would be ridiculous now. But the bottom line is I kind of really grew to love developing content and creating things differently than just in the sports arena. And that's when I started doing acting and pursuing that as an individual, and going to Philadelphia and taking all kinds of classes and working with Mike Lemon and Huey Casting and Kathy Wickline. And I had an agent, and I was going on all kinds of auditions. And then I also started doing stage work, and I was doing a lot of local theater, and in kind of just the combination of all those things where I was connecting, with a theater, crowd. And then I was in a sports environment because I was still touring at that point all over the country doing, 60 plus, summer baseball shows in a summer with our Reggie the Purple Party Dude act. And all of this stuff just like kind of allowed me to kind of see things from a lot of different angles and use all these different lenses. But again, my through line was always about connecting with an audience. And at one point, Dave and I were, in the business for a long time. I was working with Dave almost 15 years. And I just was really about the content, and it wasn't his thing. It just wasn't where his heart was. And it was more mine. And essentially we ended up probably 10 years ago or so now, sort of separating, and I went off and started Bruce Productions, which actually was the initial launch of myself as an individual owner and and kind of taking that next step. And Bruce Productions became a video production company, a creative consulting firm. We were helping with some events. We were doing a little bit of all kinds of things. And then King Creative was born literally a little over a year ago. And it was an evolution of Bruce Productions. And even if you look at the logos, you can see some similarities in the blue lion. The King Creative line is kind of an evolved, slightly more mature version of the Bruce Productions lion. And I guess through that process of taking that leap, in Bruce Productions and leaning on a lot of the things that I had built, and I had great reputation in the sports entertainment field, and I was able to kind of use that to kind of allow us to test and kind of grow some of the other aspects of the business. And we just got good at it over time. And the love of really connecting and the love of just getting lost in people's worlds has carried us well in terms of content development and creation. And we're really good now at getting lost in a world, adapting quickly, being able to understand their voice and connect their audience. And so I felt really confident when we got to the point of like taking this to the next level and building out King Creative.
So kind of going back, or so taking things to the next level, is there, what was your first hire? How long was it just you, or did you, what was your?
That's taken a lot of forms over the year. I mean, with Bruce Productions, I had a handful of full-time employees. We shifted the model at one point, and we started going to more subcontractors and kind of had a bunch of people that were sort of game and ready to go at any given point based on projects, and we would scale it that way. And for a small business owner and an entrepreneur, I think cash flow is one of the biggest things. And we were able to manage our cash flow much more efficiently by doing it that way, and which is why we shifted to that model. And now with King Creative, we're starting to kind of move back into that workforce, like developing employees and kind of building out the team again. And that's partly because, we've got ourselves in a position where we're able to now take on more work and have the stability to do so. And that's been really cool. So yeah, it's the first hires for us are, we had a couple things. We had people that were helping with the books. I think that's really important to get some stability, and you got to have the financials down, and, you can be as creative as you want. And we always joke here, and actually I even have a mug, ideas are not the problem. It's all about execution, and you can't execute without a good team. So yeah, that's really what it's all about. So I have a nice stable group of editors, creative, minds. We have production support, and we have our in-house team that just kind of crank and kind of push things forward to make it happen.
Was there anything that you did as, it's one thing again to be a creative and have this idea of like, taking on these projects, but is there anything you did personally to become a leader and like how to change into that role?
Yeah, I think, it's always an interesting question. I think a lot of times, if you look at I don't necessarily look at myself that way, but it's more about leading by example, being willing to put in the time and the energy and the work and just be there to cultivate and to encourage. And I think inherently through that, you hope that those that fit the vibe, those that, should be around will be, and it works itself out. I mean, not everybody fits. Having the right people in the right seats is important, and we're working on that ourselves every day. We're trying to make sure that we can delegate and we can, kind of spread things out and keep the machine running. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's just being willing to put in the time and the energy, trying to invest in not just myself and our business, but our people.
I love that. So I feel like I love that you said like putting people in the right seats, I think is important. And like you said, investing. So going a little bit into your, investing, did you bootstrap your company, or did you take on any kind of traditional or non-traditional?
I haven't taken a dollar of a loan at this point. We've been able to just do it through hard work and kind of pushing things forward that way. And with the good thing there is we haven't strapped ourselves with debt and those types of things, which I've really pushed hard to try to keep doing. Obviously, there's some great opportunities out there right now, and like I know SBA has opportunities, and they, in terms of scaling and growing, sometimes it's important to take some of that on, but do it intelligently. Don't just take on a bunch of debt just because you're like, oh, I can do this and I can do this. We're trying to do it organically, and we're trying to make choices that make sense for us and make steps that we know we can handle And you don't want to, I feel like sometimes if you push it too fast, if you try to grow too fast, it'll break. But you also have to take chances, and you need to know when and where to take those risks.
That's great. And is there anything that kind of, I like to say, is there anything that kind of keeps you up at night? I know a lot of entrepreneurs have a lot.
Well, I have a 4-month-old, so that's part
well,
of it.
that definitely keeps you up.
Yeah.
About every 2 hours.
My wife definitely gets the brunt of that. So yeah, and definitely harder on her than it is me at this point. I have to admit, but it's a beautiful thing, and she's actually 4 months old today.
Oh wow!
Cool.
Birthday day.
It is.
Well, not year birthday, but
it all works at this point. We're counting, and actually, we're going to transition from going from months, and people start counting. Oh, how many weeks, and then it's how many months. I'm thinking we actually may back it up, and I'm going to start counting seconds or minutes,
days,
and that'll just be super annoying. So, oh, she's zillion minutes old. It's so cute.
Yeah. Well, I went to a party one time, and I have to say the math in my head as they were saying the months, I was like, so for virtually they're 2. Like
yeah, and it's like, at what point do you just transition, right? Like, come on, let's. Yeah, but it's just a fun thing, and it's been a nice distraction through all this with everything going on in the world, of course. And I'm trying to even think back to the question. The thing that keeps me up at night, obviously we got to make sure bills are paid. That's important. I got to make sure that the team is supported, that we're ready for the next project, that that we're going to hit deadlines. It's all the things. It's all the things that you would imagine. I would think, and then just ideas. Running through concepts, and when you're excited about things, when you're passionate about the work you do, you tend to think about it, and it is hard to separate kind of the work from the rest of you. And for me, it's always been really a part of who I am, and not just what I do, if that makes sense. And I think I'm fortunate in some ways because of that, but also it does tend to bleed into other areas, but we try to find that balance.
And is there anything that, I know everyone has had to pivot, and we all have challenges. Did you guys do anything specific to kind of help you pivot during this moment? I kind of heard you say we did a lot of live streams.
Yeah, and that was part of it. That was the live streaming was definitely a thing that we had looked into it years ago, and honestly, we were like, but it wasn't until this really hit that we were like, all right, this is just, we know this is going to be something that we should just look more into. Stop dragging our feet on it. Let's just grab some gear and figure out how to do this well. And we've been able to definitely benefit from that. It's helped us recently with being able to deliver for the Millennial Summit, for instance. It's helped us with Delaware Today, and we ran their, Best of Delaware kickoff celebration, with a combination of pre-produced elements and live production. We helped, there's a number of nonprofits and charities that were helping them produce their Zoom chats in a way that's more engaging and more interesting. And if it wasn't for us taking that chance and going for it and making that shift, who knows? I mean, we'd be in a different position right now. So I'm glad we did.
No, I feel like at least for my perspective, I feel like our community has really come together to help each other, help each other pivot. I feel like there has been a lot of silver linings to this new virtual reality that we're in.
Yeah.
And one of them is seeing how we're using all of our businesses and partners to pivot and help us do better work. So I know that there's like kind of it's like a small business and there's a little snowball. Did you ever notice when the momentum really started picking up? Was there anything you did or changed?
I feel like we've been relatively consistent. One of the things that we did that I think helped us is we kept consistently putting out content through this process, and we developed this COVID conversations piece. And that was like 25 episodes of quality conversations with real people, with real obstacles, talking about real problems. And we were just putting out content. And the fact that we were able to do that in that time when people were sitting at home trying to figure out what they're doing, but they kept seeing us doing stuff, helped carry us to that next phase. Because I think the thing that a lot of people did, it was like, it started off a little bit like a vacation, a little bit like, oh, we're going to take some time off and we're going to enjoy the break. And then that sort of like got old. And then people started figuring out, okay, well, now what are we going to do? Because this is getting a little more real. And for those that hadn't been proactively doing something and getting themselves in a position, now they had to catch up. And we were already moving. So that allowed us, I think, to put ourselves in a really nice position to be a solution for people that now are starting to like, we need to do something. help us. And I think that really was a moment where, at least from the live stream and the virtual aspect, it made a big difference in terms of where we're at right now. And some of the other projects we had going, if we were in post-production, we could still edit. So that was nice. The music side of our business with the recording studio kind of shut down completely for a while because that was actually on the list of things that couldn't keep operating. But we had to get creative, just like anything. And I think obstacles and, challenges provide great opportunities for people to be innovative and to come up with solutions. And that's, I mean, you kind of hit it on a little bit earlier. That's what we've been seeing a lot of, I think.
Yeah, and I love that you just said, like, you were becoming a solution for the community, and I feel like that is a good takeaway for those who are, looking for ways to pivot or improve their business, is becoming a solution. So finding that problem and becoming a solution for the community to help scale and grow your business is important. Was there any?
We take, and not to jump in there, but I think we take that mentality a lot. I mean, we're not very salesy at the end of the day. I think we try to really just be a solution. Like, I think be a guide to them to help them connect with their audience. Like, don't think of it as like, well, I got to sell this deal, or, we just don't do it that way. Because I think you become much more genuine. People want to buy things, but they just don't want to be sold. So just provide a quality solution and to real problems, and then those interactions already become better right out of the gate. I think it just becomes more real, and I think it's a much better way to come at it.
I agree. And I feel like even starting these conversations with, entrepreneurs here in the community, we're not only getting to know you, but we're really getting to educate and help others, learn from your stories. So is there anything that you felt like you maybe wish you had learned prior to just jumping into becoming a business owner?
I mean, yeah, obviously, I mean, I think the hardest part for me is like, just there's so much you can do, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think it's really difficult for a lot of people to reel it in. I think you have to evaluate the opportunities, and people have ideas, and that's why we kind of have started to develop these monikers. Like, ideas are not the problem. We can come up with ideas all day long, but we don't need to act on every single one of them. One, and we need to be selective, and we need to. So I think the thing that you really can, I think ultimately learned, and that we're starting to really benefit from, is that ability to filter through all the stuff, start to prioritize, start to really understand that you don't have to be all things to all people. Be really good at what you do, sit firmly inside of that, and don't worry about not being able to help somebody here. And if anything, maybe try to find them another solution. That's where, like, the networking is really important. And that's why things like the chamber are really important, because you don't have to be the answer to all the things, but it's nice if you can connect them to somebody else who might be able to help them in an area you can't. And I think that only makes things stronger for everybody. And that is the community aspect that I think is really important. And I know the chamber prescribes for, to, obviously, and that we inherently do, whether we're working with you guys or just in anything we do. So I'm a collaborator, I'm a connector kind of by heart. So that's something that, we've been able to kind of leverage and do, I think, probably better than some, at least.
Yeah, and I think that's a good reminder to those, it's about not being everything to everyone, finding that kind of spot where you really are, you really do shine and you make the best. So I was actually wondering, so that was kind of advice that you were giving, have you heard, and what's like your favorite piece of advice that you've heard, if there is any, that's kind of been something that you use going throughout either your career,
I mean, I think a lot of things, I mean, we're always creating. So like, sometimes I'm like, I'm not even sure where that came from anymore. But, I have a fun moment. This is actually just something fun, and Mark, guys, Marquivas Gideon from Nerd It Now, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. He and I were talking yesterday, and he was sharing me a little bit about what he was working on. And we're talking about just like going for things and taking, chances, and like, life's going to be crazy. So you might as well make it awesome. And these are things that I'm saying. And then I was like, listen, we were talking kind of about like jumping and like going for it, like sky's the limit kind of stuff. And I was like, dude, jump as high as you can, because you know where the ground is. The ground's not going anywhere. Like, you know where that is. So jump, go for it. And that's just one thing that sort of happened organically yesterday. And I thought that was a cool idea. We'll have to refine that for the TEDx talk and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things early on for me that I think was relatively influential, a guy by the name of Scott O'Neill, who was an executive with the Eagles back in the day, talked about treating people a certain way because, one, it's just the right thing. You should just treat people well. I don't care who they are or where they are, just treat people well. But he put it in some perspective. So I'm a young intern, freshman, going into sophomore year in college. And he's like, you never know who that person is. They might be a janitor today, but they could be a CEO tomorrow. And you got to just treat people well because you see the same people on the way up as you see on the way down. And it's just another reminder, and it's perspective. I think for me, perspective is one of the biggest things that I try to remind myself, is because it's easy to get lost in the moment. It's easy to get ahead of yourself. We get moving, we get over inundated, we get busy, and you get lost in your blinders slowly do this. And you start to only see what's right in front of you and you miss everything. So it's like you have to kind of pull back, take a half second, and just reset your parameters. And by doing that, you make less mistakes, you make better decisions, and you're able to kind of keep things moving forward. And that's one of the biggest things in the world. I think just take those quick seconds, reset your perspective, and then move back forward. And that goes to a lot of things. Even think about a text. Like, how many times have you sent, you're racing, you send a text message and you're like, oh, as soon as you send it, you see a typo or you see an error or an autocorrect. And I came up with this idea that said, hit space instead of send. And like, if you condition yourself to hit space when you're done the text, you catch those. And it's just that split second. It usually, because it happens all, I mean, I'm sure you just tell me exactly, like, you're sitting there and you're right on an email or a text and you hit send and you're like, boom, as soon as you hit it, you're like, ah.
All the time. I even just did an email where I had put someone like dear and I put their last name instead of their first name.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things like that. I look ridiculous sending this email now. That's
yeah,
the first impression they're getting.
And now you got to send another email and you got to apologize and you wasted all this time. It's like, if you just like a split second, you would have caught it, you would have fixed it, you would have sent it, and you would have been on.
Yep. I love that. I love the perspective. And I also feel like sometimes when you're sitting in fear, like, I know there's a lot of like, especially when you have a lot of decisions to make at once, I sometimes feel like you can get those blinders on, and I myself have a hard time just sitting back and, really looking past, whatever that feeling is at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's all natural stuff. It's everybody deals with it. That's the thing.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of share about yourself. I think it's really important to just share about yourself, not just about the company. And then also, you're also sharing with the community, who King Creative is and what kind of services and things you can provide to the community, which is great.
No,
so
absolutely.
If anyone wants to chat with you after this conversation or learn more about you or the company, where would they go?
So, a couple ways. You can go to kingcreative.com. There's a website, simple. We're actually in the process of redeveloping the site, but there's good information on there. It's simple, it's straightforward. You can reach me directly if you want to email me at cbruce, that's C as in Christopher, Bruce is in my last name, at kingcreative.com. You can also use info@kingcreative.com. That's our generic. That goes to a few of us. And ultimately, just reach out. If you have any ideas that you're formulating on, the good time to call us is early, because what we're really good at is helping develop the plan, develop the idea, and then figure out the things you should do moving forward. I think a lot of times people come to us almost too late because they've already made some, I don't want to say mistakes, but they've kind of gotten too far down the road when we could have helped them make an easier path forward. So whether it's commercial work, maybe you're setting up for a television or a digital ad campaign, or you need a really great profile video for your website or your LinkedIn or your email, we can do those. Internal videos are great. You name it. If it's content, we can help you create it. And from the music standpoint, the stuff that's coming out of our recording studio is crazy. It's awesome. It's beautiful. And we're looking for really top-notch quality artists that are trying to take their music careers seriously. and to do it the right way. So we have a really premier recording studio situation going on here, and we'd love to work with those artists and help them develop their EPs, their tracks, their albums, their singles, the whole deal. And yeah, look out for some of the stuff that's coming out. It's really nice. We're working with a group right now called In Front,
Are they
and
local?
well, they're local when they're here.
Okay.
No, but they come from all over the country. There's four girls that used to be backup singers for Gerald Levert, big
Mhm.
time name in the R&B world, and they just recently formed a group called In Front because they were in the back, now they're in front. And the music is beautiful. We're actually looking to shoot a music video, our second music video with them next week, and they're putting out music. You can go to In Front, and it's N, so the letter N, front music.com. Check them out.
That's awesome. And I also love they're kind of bringing something, new and unique to the Newcastle County area or
Yeah.
Wilmington area. So
We all have something unique and cool to share. So, we're here to help everybody do that.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. And I look forward to working. I know the chamber is going to work with you more, and you'll be part of our kind of ecosystem
Awesome.
or our community. So thank you so
We
much
love it.
for taking the
No,
time.
it's my pleasure.
And have a great day. And everyone, make sure to check out kingcreative.com for more information.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Hey,
guys.
stay awesome. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Bye.